The Bluey movie will arrive in theaters next year, and we already have some information about this huge production. Are you ready to find out what the new adventure of the Healer family will be like? Name. The first thing we need to know about this movie is that it changed its name. Before, it was announced as Bluey the Movie, but now it's called The Bluey Movie. And yes, there is a difference, and it might even be a clue about the story of the film. We're not going to explain the reason for that just yet, but you need to pay attention to this change because there is a little more than a year left before the movie arrives in theaters. That means Joe Brumm, the creator of this universe, is still developing the film. This also means we're still going to see several changes before we can watch the final version that will hit theaters. And that's exactly why you need to stay here on our channel, because we're going to bring you all the updates today and in the coming months. Are you ready? Because another amazing Cinewave is starting now. Studio. Another thing we know about this movie is that it is not being made by Ludo Studios. Anyone who isn't really passionate about the animation universe might not know what we're talking about, but we'll explain. Ludo Studios is the company that produces the regular Bluey animation. All 3 seasons so far were animated by them, but the Bluey movie is being produced by an animation studio called Cosmic Dino, which is also located in Brisbane, Australia. But why is this so important? There are 3 answers to that. The first is because Cosmic Dino is bigger than Ludo Studios when we are talking about producing a movie. They are able to create this animation faster, which means we might get to watch the new animation sooner than everyone expected. The second answer to this question is actually great news. Cosmic Dino is probably handling this movie because Ludo Studios is busy working on something else. Could this mean the arrival of season 4? Let's hope so. 3D. Now we're going to explain the third reason why Disney changed the studio producing the new movie. Cosmic Dino is very good at making a specific type of film. Do you know which one? 3D movies. You know that the Bluey series is animated in 2D, and everyone agrees the episodes are beautiful, but this change for the movie shows that the production will be completely computer animated. In other words, we're going to see Bluey and all her friends in a different way with even more detail. Why is that so important? This change could be a clue that the world of Bluey is growing and that it's far, very far from ending, and that makes perfect sense. We can even use Peppa Pig as an example. That series has been on the air for more than 20 years and is now also releasing a 3D movie, as we already talked about here on the channel. The change in Bluey's visual style is great news for the animation universe. We're going to keep watching the Healer family for many years from now, and that couldn't be more perfect. Theaters. We know that the movie will be released in theaters around the world in August 2027. Because of some leaks, everyone believes it will happen during the first week of that month, which means there's a little more than a year left before everyone can watch it. At the same time, we know that the Bluey movie will be distributed by Disney, and that alone already makes you understand where we're going with this, right? Bluey is officially becoming a movie from the studios of Mickey, and that changes everything. We know that when Disney releases a movie in theaters, that film has a strong chance of turning into a big screen franchise. In other words, we might be getting closer to the birth of a new era in cinema, one where Bluey becomes a box office success with several movies in the coming years. So get ready for Bluey 1, but also for the second movie, the third, and maybe even many more. Would you like to watch several Bluey movies in theaters? Comment #cinema so we can buy the tickets. Pixar. But we have another piece of news that might be even better. It's actually a theory that has been right in front of us since the beginning of the series, but nobody noticed. What if this movie is actually the next Pixar animation? You don't believe it? Then let's show you the evidence. First, we already explained that Bluey will arrive in theaters as a 3D movie, and that's exactly the type of animation Pixar makes. Second, there are Pixar Easter eggs inside Bluey episodes. For example, when we see the famous yellow Pixar ball at Bingo's school when Bandit takes the girls to school, or even in the episode where Muffin sleeps over at her cousin's house and we see that the little dog's sleeping bag looks exactly like the wallpaper in Andy's bedroom, who was the first owner of the main characters in Toy Story. The sleeping bag shows a blue sky with white clouds, and that can only be a reference to the Pixar studio. Now, if you put all of that information together, the answer becomes clear. Bluey could be the newest Disney Pixar success in theaters, and as we already said, that news couldn't be more perfect. Let's hope the theory turns out to be true. Do you agree? Actress. Could the change in the movie's name mean that our main character will become an actress? That actually makes some sense, and we're going to to explain why. In the episode Bumpy in season 1, Bluey created an entire stage play to entertain Bingo, who was in the hospital. In the episode The Show, she did the same thing while telling the story of how her parents met. Throughout the series, we see many examples showing how Bluey is perfect at creating characters and amazing stories. And since, according to the latest information, this movie will be called The Bluey Movie, maybe the story will be about her becoming the main character of a story. Maybe our little pup finally finds a television studio willing to record the games she invents. That would be incredible. Bluey definitely has the talent to become a great actress, don't you think? But there is still another possibility. Camera. The Bluey movie could show our main character with a camera recording her adventures with Bingo. Let's think about how interesting that would be. The day starts like a normal episode of Bluey in a 2D art style, just like it happens in the series. Then Bluey receives a package. It's a gift from her godmother and now aunt, Frisky, since Frisky wasn't at Bluey's birthday party in the episode Pass the Parcel, which means it's a late present. When Bluey finally opens the box, she finds a camera with a note saying that it's a digital camera and that now the little pup will be able to record her adventures in high definition. At that moment, Bluey turns the camera on, and the entire visual style of the movie changes to 3D because the whole story will be filmed through Bluey's camera lens. The main character would record them going to the park, visiting the creek, taking the camera to the beach while Bluey learns how to surf, and much more. But there's one problem. Maybe this movie won't have room for Bluey's friends. But wait, how could that be? Maybe it's not the best theory, but what if Bluey only records the adventures she has with Bingo and leaves her friends out? That's very possible, because if the story takes place during the Healer sisters' vacation, then we might not see Mackenzie, Indy, or Rusty. Can you imagine a movie without Chloe or Coco? That would be pretty sad, but let's remember that most episodes of the series focus mainly on the main characters, which are the members of the Healer family. Not to mention that we already explained that this adventure could have a sequel, which means Joe Brumm might simply be saving the other characters for later. What do you think about that?
Villain. There's another thing about this movie that needs to be very clear for the fans. Our sources say that it might have a villain, and if that's true, then it changes everything in the Bluey universe. Anyone who watches the series knows that in the episodes, our main character always has a challenge to face. That part is normal because Bluey is always learning something, but a movie that goes to theaters and lasts more than an hour needs to have a bigger challenge for our heroine to overcome. That's where the idea of a villain comes in. In Frisky's wedding episode, which lasted more than half an hour, there were two big challenges. Frisky almost called off the wedding, and the family's house almost ended up being sold. Now we're talking about a story made for theaters, and because of that, we need a much bigger movie with a more important challenge. Will the villain theory turn out to be true? We heard that it could be the evil cat that killed that little bird in the episode Copycat, but for now, that's just one of the fans' favorite theories.
There's a new video here every day, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date. Canada. Still talking about the theory that the movie might show Bluey filming her adventures with a camera during her vacation. What do you think about a trip to Canada, the home of Jean-Luc? This is something Joe Brumm has owed the fans for a very long time. You probably remember that Jean-Luc only appeared in a single episode of the series back in season 1. More than 100 episodes have passed since then, and fans still haven't forgotten about him. In other words, it's more than time for Bluey to reunite with her friend who lives on the other side of the world, especially because that would answer two big questions in the series. The first question is why Jean-Luc learned English just to talk to Bluey, since that's information we have from the official website of the series. The second question is how Bluey still remembers a boy she met when she was little even after so many years, since the final scene of their episodes shows that she remembers him. If the friends meet again in the movie, but this time in Canada, we would finally have the answer to all those questions. Not to mention that Jean-Luc returning in the film would, without a doubt, make this animation one of the best movies of the year. What do you think about that? Karate. Now hold on, because we're about to tell you about an amazing possibility. You know that in the episode Bin Night, Bluey has a yellow belt in karate. And do you know what usually happens to people who practice this kind of sport? Fighting tournaments. It would be incredible if the movie were actually a championship where the main character competes in karate. We would have a lot of action. What do you think? Hockey. You also know that in the mini episode alongside, Bingo is practicing field hockey, which is Chili's favorite sport. If the movie is about sports championships for the girls, with Bluey doing karate and Bingo playing hockey, then we might already have the answer to that villain rumor. It wouldn't be an evil person, but rather someone the girls need to defeat in a friendly competition. Bingo would need to win her match, and Bluey would need to win her karate tournament, and we would still get plenty of action. What do you think? Time. And finally, but not least, this movie has the chance to do something we really want to see. A time
time jump where Bluey is older and facing new challenges. The only question is whether she will be a teenager like Mia and Captain, or already an adult with her daughter, whom we see at the end of Season 3. We'll have to wait for the movie's premiere in theaters to find out, but until then, stay with us. If you like this video, there are 2 more ready on the screen. Just click and keep watching with us. Thanks, and see you soon.